This week, we are uncovering the chilling tale of the Scorecard Killer, a predator who terrorized California in the 1970s and 1980s. Join us as we explore the twisted mind behind the murders and the hunt to bring justice to his victims. Let's jump in.
I'm Sammy.
And I'm Nicole,
and we are Spooky Sleuths.
Hey guys,
Hello.
welcome back to Spooky Sleuths. As we mentioned, today we are going to talk about the Scorecard Killer.
I can't wait. I have a feeling this is going to be bad.
Yeah, I don't think you're ready.
I'm probably not.
Yeah, trigger warnings. We talk about everything in here, so we understand if you can't hang. Randy Kraft was born in 1945 in Long Beach, California. You know where the Queen Mary is?
Yeah. We're on a California kick this week.
We are. But he was raised in Westminster, California in Orange County. Randy was very conservative and fit in with the community, which at this time was described as an ultra-conservative community. He was so conservative that his schoolmates would describe him as right of Attila the Hun.
Oh.
Who was one of the most fearsome enemies the Romans faced back in the 400 AD period.
Oh, wow.
Randy was also very intelligent with an IQ of 129, which is considered above average or bright.
Okay.
Randy graduated from high school in 1963 and began college at Claremont Men's College to study economics. At this time, he also joined the Reserve Officer Training Corps.
Wait, I have a question.
Yes.
What's your IQ?
I have no idea.
Mine's 140.
Happy for you.
Yeah. You wouldn't believe such dumb things coming from someone with a 140 IQ.
Did the internet tell you it was 140?
No, I had a real test.
Proud of you.
Yeah.
He also began campaigning for Barry Goldwater, who was the 1964 election Republican candidate and supported the Vietnam War.
Oh.
Starting in 1965, he did kind of a 180. His political views turned more liberal. He even began working at a gay bar as a bartender. He grew a beard and began supporting Robert Kennedy, a Democratic politician. Not only did he seem to change his political views, but it seems that he realized he was gay.
Oh. So it's kind of like that conservative front was just like him lying to himself.
Yes. While finishing his college education, he partook in some bondage activities and would just disappear a few times a week and come back at random hours of the day.
Oh.
In 1966 came his first arrest. Randy mistakenly solicited an undercover cop who then arrested him and charged him with lewd behavior.
That's embarrassing.
That is so embarrassing. That would be awful.
Do you imagine reading about someone you know in the papers? Oh.
Yeah, absolutely not. No, thank you.
No hate to like sex workers. But you did it to an undercover cop.
Yeah, that would be terrible. He got off with a warning as it was his first offense, but it seems like something changed within him. Randy was now more open about being gay. He spent a lot of his free time in gay bars. He fell behind in his schoolwork and even had to retake a class to be able to graduate.
Oh.
In 1969, Randy was stationed at the Edwards Air Force Base. It was also about this time that he came out to his parents and he was discharged. His discharge records claim a medical problem, but it's hard to tell at that time what the actual reason for discharge was, as the military had a strict don't ask, don't tell policy.
Right.
And Randy was telling. He was being very open with it, which is completely crazy considering his background.
Yeah.
Randy had some medical issues, though. He would frequently have stomach pains and migraines, which he took Valium for.
Who takes Valium for stomach pains and migraines?
I don't know.
Wait, I get migraines like on the daily. Where can I get some Valium?
In 1969, you could have gotten Valium.
That was a long time before I was even born.
Yes, it was. After being discharged from the military, Randy continued to work as a bartender at Randy continued to work as a bartender at Bowie's Shed, one of the 3 gay bars in Sunset Beach. He would eventually become a computer programmer.
Oh.
Randy was big into the party scene,
Of course he was.
which is totally on trend for that demographic.
In that time.
Yes. He often partied at the bars and lived off a diet of meth and beer.
Are we sure this isn't West Virginia?
I'm positive. He was very unpredictable and would disappear or lock himself in a room for days on end. Then in 1970 comes along and Randy commits his first heinous act.
Oh, no.
Randy was walking down the Huntington Beach boardwalk when he came across a man named Joseph Fancher. Joseph was a runaway who was only 13 years old. Joseph asked Randy for a cigarette and the two began talking. Randy convinced Joseph to come home with him, offering him a room and telling him that there was a lady at the house that wanted to take his virginity.
He's 13.
And naturally, Joseph was excited.
Oh.
He jumped on the back of Randy's motorcycle and they went to his home in Belmont Shore. Once at Randy's home, Joseph was drugged. He was given weed and wine along with sedatives. Joseph stated in his court testimony, "It was like I was a rag doll."
Oh, that's so sad.
He was too sedated and drowsy to fight Randy off.
Oh, my gosh.
Randy was able to essay and sodomize Joseph. He was quiet about the assault for 13 years.
That is so awful.
That is, especially whenever that false pretenses and no, it was.
That's terrible. He was 13 years old and a homeless runaway.
And that's how we lose our virginity. Like, that's terrible. In 1971, Randy committed his first murder. A man named Wayne Joseph Duquette was found along Ortega Highway in Orange County, California. He left his job at a gay bar called Stables and was found dead the next morning. There were oddly no signs of foul play, and no evidence was found to convict Randy, but he is the main suspect. Wayne's death was ruled to be caused by acute alcohol poisoning.
All right.
The highway would be a popular dumping ground during this time, not only for Randy, but for the serial killers William Bonin and Patrick Kearney, also known as the Highway Killers. The pair are also similar to Randy's MO, as they were all male and had some kind of sexual abuse before their deaths.
Oh.
Right, it's like weird timing. Like, it's almost like he was working with them.
Yeah. I can imagine why, like with Wayne, they weren't able to pin it on him because there were other people doing the same exact thing that he was doing.
Absolutely. It would have made it very difficult convicting anybody.
Right.
Like during that area for that. But let's talk about some confirmed victims of Randy's.
Okay.
In 1972, a 20-year-old Marine stationed at Camp Pendleton named
Deadward?
named Edward Daniel Moore was found off an exit on the 605 freeway in California. Edward was believed to be bisexual and spent a lot of time in gay bars. There's a theory that he was also a part-time prostitute, as he was often described as a hustler type.
Is that what we called prostitutes back then, as hustlers?
I guess.
Like when, what was her name? Hustlers need not apply.
No, it was triflers. Belle Gunnis.
Okay.
It was triflers. That was like the 1800s, remember? Yeah. She didn't want any triflers. Hustlers, she probably would have been okay with.
Probably. Well, they might have some money.
Edward was found fully clothed, but missing a belt, shoes, and one sock. Actually, he had his other sock, but it was inserted into his anus. Edward's genitals were bitten. He was beaten with a blunt object and finally strangled before his death.
A sock in his anus.
This is just the beginning.
This is awful.
Yes. And in 1973, it brought 3 more victims. Well, several more victims. 3 men were unidentified, but Randy is credited for 2 additional victims.
Okay.
Ronnie Jean Weeb and Vicente Cruz Mestas. Ronnie was a 20-year-old who wasn't gay. He frequented a straight bar and was previously married. He was found on the 605 freeway as well. Ronnie had his stomach and genitals bitten. He was beaten and strangled. Not only that, but he also had a sock shoved up his rectum. Vicente was a 23-year-old art student. He was found in a ravine in San Bernardino Mountains. He was freshly shaved, had a pencil-sized object inserted into his genitals, and a sock was inserted into his anus. Randy decided to turn it up a notch with Vicente, though. This time, he cut off his victim's hands and placed plastic sandwich bags over the stumps. 1974 brought even more victims. Malcolm Eugene Little was a 20-year-old found nude against a mesquite tree off Highway 86 with his legs spread showing severed genitals and a branch from the tree inserted 6 inches into his anus. Roger Dickerson was an 18-year-old Marine found near a Laguna Beach golf course after being sodomized, strangled, and having his genitals and left nipple bitten.
This is awful.
This is really difficult to read through. And I'm the type of person that whenever I get uncomfortable, I laugh. So this is a hard one because I don't want to be disrespectful.
Absolutely.
So if there's laughter or smiles, just know it is because of severe discomfort, not because we think this is funny.
Absolutely, 100%.
Thomas Paxton Lee was a 25-year-old hustler, and Gary Wayne Cordova was a 23-year-old. Both were not credited to Randy initially, as they didn't have his usual trademarks like genital mutilation or sodomizing, but they died from alcohol and Valium overdosing.
Oh, and homeboy took Valium.
Right. James Dale Reeves was a 19-year-old gay man found with his legs spread and a tree limb that was 4 feet long and 3 inches wide inserted into his anus.
Ow!
I'm assuming they didn't get all 4 feet in.
Oh.
The murder after James Dale Reeves is where it gets more interesting.
Great.
For the final murder of 1974, it appears that Randy may have had a helper. John Liris was a 17-year-old high school student. He was found floating off Sunset Beach with a wooden surveyor stake that was hammered into his anus. He was strangled and bound and had a high amount of alcohol in his system. Over at the car park for Sunset Beach, 2 sets of footprints were found leading from the parking spot to where James was dumped.
That's interesting.
Right. It's like, who? Like, maybe he was working with the other 2.
Yeah. Or maybe that one was the other 2, but they always dump their victims off of the freeway.
Right. Just strange. Speaking of strange, another strange murder was that of Craig Victor Jonites. Craig Victor Jonites, who was a 21-year-old who was strangled near a Long Beach motel on the Pacific Coast Highway. Craig's murder was odd because not only was he fully dressed, but he had 2 pairs of pants on. Could the other pair belong to an accomplice that has remained hidden?
That is really weird.
That's weird.
That he added an extra pair of pants.
Very strange. There were at least 67 victims, but I'm only going to talk about a few more that broke the usual pattern that Randy had going on because it's just so graphic.
Yeah, and you get the point by now.
Right. In 1976, Mark Howard Hall was murdered. He was 22 years old and was found sodomized with deep cuts in his legs, car cigarette lighter burns, castrated, and had a cocktail swizzle inserted into his genitals. He also had dirt, leaves, and his genitals stuffed into his rectum.
I'm assuming they did kind of like a tuck?
I don't know.
Like everything was just tucked back in.
I'm assuming.
Or maybe that's where his testicles were after being castrated.
Yeah, I'm honestly not 100% sure.
I don't know if we want to know.
I was reading articles and just went with what was said.
Yeah.
Didn't want to dig too deep. Dirt and leaves were stuffed down his throat, all before succumbing to alcohol poisoning and strangulation. In 1978 was the death of Michael Joseph Enderbeaton, who was 20 years old. Michael was sodomized, castrated, had an object inserted into his anus, and had his eyelids burnt off with a cigarette lighter.
Oh my God.
He was finally strangled and suffocated to death.
That poor guy couldn't even rest. Couldn't even close his eyes.
Yeah,
That's awful.
The final victim that we're going to discuss was Terry Lee Gambrill, who was a 25-year-old murdered in 1983. Terry was strangled with his own belt, which actually was a key to solving the case as it was found in Randy's car along with his body when he was arrested. Terry is the last confirmed murderer, although Randy is credited for at least 67. It was clear that Randy had a preferred victim type. He targeted young white men. These men were typically hitchhikers, runaways, or men in gay bars. A large number of his victims were Marines that were trying to get a ride into Orange County from their base as well.
Oh, that's awful.
This may answer why so many of our country's military men were able to be victims.
Yeah, you wouldn't really think that this type of crime you would have a bunch of Marines involved with.
He'd offer them a ride and drug them so they couldn't fight back. Almost all of Randy's victims were SA'd, tortured, and mutilated in some way. He also strangled almost all of his victims, whereas others were overdosed. And they probably had the plan to strangle, but...
Right.
Before
they overdosed and no point now.
Right. It's believed that the sock in the rectum bit came from a foot fetish that Randy had.
Oh. No, we can't blame that on foot fetishes.
Right, especially
Fetishes
because
are normal.
Right.
I don't have a
because
foot
you
fetish.
have one. Maggie, stop.
My dog licks my toes and I tell her to stop.
Maggie, stop. Randy was driving along the highway one day in 1983 when he was drinking and driving.
Great. What a winner this guy is.
I know. He had such a bright future, too. That's the crazy thing. And he got caught picking up a prostitute one time. And he's like,
this is my life now.
A California Highway Patrol trooper pulled him over because he was weaving and driving on the shoulder of the freeway. In his car was Terry, strangled to death. His car was littered with several empty beer bottles along with a lorazepam bottle and tranquilizers. Lorazepam is an anxiety and depression medication, also known as Ativan. In Randy's trunk was a coded list of 67 victims and an envelope with 47 pictures of young men deceased in pornographic poses.
Oh.
On the passenger seat of Randy's car was blood, although Terry hadn't been cut, so the blood had to belong to another victim. The police got a search warrant for Randy's home. They found the code to his victim list in the form of a scorecard. He would give his victims strange names based on their locations or habits. Some nicknames included Iowa, New Year's Eve, and deodorant.
Oh, that's not weird.
Randy claims these names came from previous sexual encounters or other mundane things. Police also found dismembered parts of his victims in his freezer and other belongings from them.
Okay, Jeffrey Dahmer.
It's like he picked parts of all these other known people. Randy was arrested and tried for 16 murders, as those were the strongest cases.
Right.
He was given a death sentence, which was upheld in 2000.
Okay.
He is still alive, serving his sentence on death row in San Quentin prison. He even spent some time with William Bonin, the other freeway killer.
Yeah.
While he was convicted for his Orange County murders, it's believed that he had murders in Oregon and Michigan as well.
Wow. So he just got around and wreaked havoc everywhere he went.
Yeah. But wait, there's more.
Oh, okay, great.
In 2023, a new victim was identified. A man known as John Doe was identified to be Michael Ray Schleit. Michael Ray Schleit from Iowa. The sheriff's department submitted tissue samples to develop a DNA profile, which they loaded into a genealogy database.
Okay, like they did with BTK?
Yes. They got a hit from a woman in Kansas City that they believed to be Michael's mother, who had a positive DNA match. After 49 years, the Schleit family has an answer to their missing son.
That is amazing. I love that for them. I hate that for them, but I love that they got closure.
Right. They know.
Yep. I'd rather know.
Otherwise, I would sit there with some false sense of they'll be home.
Yeah. Even if I know they're not.
Right.
I will think they are.
Randy Kraft is a horrible and deranged human who will spend the rest of his life in prison. This made me think a lot about the death penalty because I'm so back and forth on it. Thankfully, I've never had a loved one affected in a way that a death penalty is brought up, either perpetrator or victim.
Right.
Whatever your stance on the issue is, I think we can all agree that the world is safer with Randy Kraft off the streets.
Absolutely. I'm the same way. I am back and forth on the death penalty. I think it's a very gray area.
But then you hear some cases and you're like, absolutely, that man does not deserve.
Like, this case, it really made me think about it. Because I'm like, does he deserve to be alive?
Right. It's awful.
But then I think, how much more of a punishment is that to be trapped in a cage 23 hours a day? I don't know.
It's a gray area for me, but
It is.
what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments down below what your stance on the death penalty is. Be nice in the comments to each other, but let us know. I'm curious. This one was a hard one to remain professional because of my discomfort.
Yes, I agree with that. I was very uncomfortable the entire time. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. It's what I'm here for. It's what you pay me for. If you made it this far, leave a sock emoji. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcasting platform, make sure you guys leave us a rate and review so we can try and get the story out to more people. He's not a really well-known serial killer, and I think
He should be.
he should absolutely be more well-known. And not glorified. I mean, his victims
Absolutely.
should get their story out there.
I think it's important that we talk about the victims whenever we go through these cases. So,
Absolutely. More so than the actual
yeah.
killer, unaliver. But make sure you guys go follow us on TikTok and Instagram. We're more active on TikTok these days, but get a hold of us over there. Give us a follow. And then make sure you guys comment, like, subscribe on YouTube. We're slowly building up a little community here, and we'd love for you to join us. Anything to add?
Nope.
And on that note, stay spooky, friends.